Yes, we will. So, Ted Cruz wants to be Obama. What? You are no doubt confused by this turn of events. Has he received the memo from the Heritage Institute on the mandate? You shouldn't be. See, this is actually one of those situations where the banks just let slip what you're not supposed to know, that Ted Cruz is in fact the continuity candidate. See, the bankers switch parties every 8 years. Remember. Ted Cruz is indeed brought to us by the exact same bankers that brought us Barack Obama. Hillary's not even their second choice. He's not even their 10th choice. Sorry, she's not even their 10th choice. Okay, really. Like, not really. Okay? But they seem to have lost their minds over the last 4 years. I've pointed this out a few times. It's probably his wife's fault. See, you lose objectivity when you're trying to get your spouse elected, and this entire cycle, Hillary, Trump, Sanders, all of it, it's all essentially a consequence of this monumental fuck-up. The banks picked a limp horse and stuck with it. Yes, you will lose, Ted. Third place tonight. You should get used to this. Now note this. It seems like Kasich won Manhattan, an island of teal and a sea of red. The obvious choice there is actually Cruz, because he's the banker candidate. But the whole plan is in tatters. Note that despite this, Trump still loses Manhattan. And that is telling. So how do you beat Trump then? Listen, I may be non-committal in terms of support. Don't expect me to hit the boards arguing for Hillary. I think she's a war criminal. And I think she makes a better Republican than Trump does. If Sanders doesn't run, I'm going to endorse Stein. But this is a math problem, so I seek a solution. How do you beat this guy? Well, I think enough time has gone on to make this base clear, right? To make his base clear, right? He's not swinging conservatives at all. Okay, there are not any conservatives that are voting for Donald Trump. He's doing very poorly with self-identified conservatives. So of all the people that are voting for him, they're not conservatives. In fact, conservatives are voting for this other guy, Ted Cruz. Okay, so I will state for at least the third time that I think Hillary will run to his right, and she'll beat him on his right. She will swing evangelicals and all manners of quote-unquote moderate conservatives, there's my little air quotes, that think he's some kind of raving liberal. Rather, I think the danger is that Clinton tries to present him as an extreme right-winger, because she makes herself look foolish, because everybody knows that he isn't. Okay? Her better tactic is to run against him the same way he's been running against Sanders, and try and paint him as an unrealistic leftist, which is closer to the truth. The early indications suggest she's not doing that, and it's going to come out in the end as an error. Again, he's not swaying conservatives. Conservatives are a demographic or a voting bloc in this election that appears to be up for grabs. And the truth is that Hillary is a conservative. Certainly much more of a conservative than Donald Trump is. So it makes more sense for her to go after them than to alienate them. They're supposed to be all about rational choices. Hillary is their rational choice. So long as she makes rational choices, they will grudgingly accept this. The way that the election is shaping up right now is totally absurd, right? You have a conservative Democrat, Hillary Clinton, trying to argue that her opponent, who is a liberal Republican or really a liberal Democrat, is an extreme right-winger. So you have a conservative arguing that a liberal is a extreme right-winger. That's the campaign that Hillary wants to run. And she wonders why people just, their brains explode when they think of her as the nominee. I do believe that her handlers will talk enough sense into her and, will align her enough with the reality of the situation to have them see, or sorry, to have her see that she is in fact to his right on almost every issue. And that tactic that she seems to want to use is going to cost her the election, if that's what she tries to do. She'll convince a certain type of idiot, and there's plenty of them out there, okay, but most people are going to look at it and just laugh because they know that she's a conservative. She's not an unknown quantity, okay? The entire country knows who Hillary Clinton is, and the entire country knows that she's a conservative. So this idea that she can run as a liberal against a liberal, it's mind-boggling. It's very hard to believe that see, it's so hard to believe that she could think that we're that stupid that you have to work in more of a level of disconnect from reality, right? If she runs that campaign, it can't be just purely Rovian, right? It can't be just a total projection of reality. It has to reflect a certain disconnect from what reality is. She would have to not really understand the situation well enough, right? And I think there's actually a little bit of evidence that might be true of her, right? We have to hope that her handlers, the people around her, are able to stop her from making that error. Okay, that's the key here, right? She should be playing on her strengths, which is that she's a cautious, moderate, conservative type person. She she will do very well if she can get across that idea and make her opponent seem like the unrealistic pie in the sky type, right? That's what she needs to do. And I think she will do that. And if she does that, she will win the conservative vote. Okay? Rather, what he's swaying, who is voting for him then? And I'm going to change my battery. I'll be back in a second. Right, so we've got this strange race coming up where you have the Democrats running a conservative and the Republicans running a liberal. And they're going to try and argue that the other one is the opposite of what they are. Right? Potentially get very confusing, and it's not going to help Clinton at all, because Clinton is not going to sway liberals in large numbers. Trump has a better chance of swaying liberals than Clinton does in the long run. Okay, not all types of liberals. There are certain types of liberals that Clinton will get without any question. You know, the upper class ones, the well-to-do ones, Clinton will do well with them. Okay, but the more like the ones that are really more interested in things like trade policy, and the ones that I think the biggest thing that's going to hurt Clinton is if Trump comes out as an anti-war candidate, and I think he might, because I think that's something that Trump really. I think if you listen to Trump closely, what he's saying is that he wants to draw back, right? He's an isolationist. He wants to spend less money on. He's been really clear on it, and I think that's a populist issue. Okay, it's something that arguably won Obama the election, because a lot of people thought that's what he was going to do, even though he said the opposite over and over again. It seems to be that the popular perception was that Obama was an isolationist. He was a peace candidate, all that kind of thing. I think that if Trump runs on an anti-war platform, he will decimate her, because he will swing all of those liberals who are more than convinced that Hillary is tough. Okay? Hillary does not need to convince me that she's tough anymore. In fact, she's convinced me that she's a war criminal and she should go to The Hague and be tried for war crimes. She's pretty tough. Yeah, that's right. Um, but I don't want someone who's tough, right? I want somebody that's into diplomacy and wants to, draw down all of these conflicts that have been burbling up over the last 15 years, you know? So, um, if Trump looks like he's more likely to pull back, that's a populist issue, and he will win all manners of liberals on that issue. So he has a better ability to win liberals um, than she does. Or, wait, I should have written this down. If she runs, if she tries to convince people that he's an extremist, and he tries to convince people that he's a liberal, he will win the election. Because his ability to convince people that he's a moderate is stronger than her ability to convince people that he's an extremist. He will win that argument because it's there may be levels of truth in both of it, but that contrast is going to benefit Trump. Not for all voters, like I say. Um, she'll win in California. She'll win in New York. But broadly speaking, um, I don't think she will not win that argument. Um, but if they try to flip it around the other way, and she goes after the conservative base, and he goes after the liberal base at the same time, that is, if they pull from each other's, both bases are dissatisfied, and in a real sense, the opposite is more what they want in both cases, right? Trump is more of a liberal than Clinton is, and Clinton is more of a conservative than Trump is. And I think that because it's just the breakdown in the country. I think that she can win more effectively that way, because she's not. There's really nothing that Trump is going to do to win in California or New York or probably in Illinois, all these kinds of states. They'd vote for a dead parrot if it had the letter D beside it, right? I know a lot of Democrats don't want to hear that, but it's the actual reality of it. There's absolutely there's no critical thinking involved at all, right? It's total. It's automatic behavior, no thought process, just show up, click, gone, done, right? But if she can win in Missouri, or I'm trying to think of what else might be a swing state. Missouri for sure. Arkansas. If she can win some of these swing states, by peeling away conservative voters, that will win her the election, even if she loses states like states like Colorado maybe, that might see Trump as a more libertarian option, right? What I think is clear is that this is the whole red state blue state thing. That's not. This election is going to be different than that. You're going to see things twisted around and pulled around a little bit, because both parties are running a candidate to appeal to the other one, right? It's that I'm confident that even if Hillary Clinton herself is not smart enough to see, what the better approach is, I am confident that her team will recognize it, and will convince her um, to run to his right. And if it's not clear, I don't think that Hillary is a stupid person. I certainly do not think she's of above average intelligence either. I think that that's a media construction. I don't think she's nearly as bright as a lot of people would like to suggest that she is. Which is not to suggest that she would have difficulty tying her shoelaces or anything either. But I don't see somebody with a lot of wisdom there. I see somebody that knows how to ask people for advice, and perhaps sees themselves in a well, as I've stated before on multiple occasions, Hillary is not really running for president. Hillary is running for empress. Hillary wants to be a queen, and that's the role that she would give for herself, where she would have people that would come to her court. She would ask them for advice, and then she would operate based on that principle. Um, uh, she she sees herself as an enlightened despot, right? That's the kind of mindset, right? Um, I don't I don't think there's a lot of original thinking, and I think that the uh, the fact that she changes her mind as often as she changes her pantsuit is indicative of that as well. Um, Not to suggest that intelligence is correlated with rigidity of thought, but generally you don't, you know, sway around all over the place like that. If you have a really good, I said this about Trump, and I'll say it about Hillary as well. The fact that it's flip flopping around all over the place, often without really a clearly defined thought process. What it really indicates is that the grasp of the issues is not particularly strong. And I'm going to again bring that back to my core argument, which is that there's really not a lot of difference between these two candidates. Um, the media is maybe presenting it in starker terms than it normally would, but um, it's no less false than it's ever been. It's still a single party, essentially, and there's still really little, if any, difference between the two candidates. Um, she's not much brighter than he is. I'm sorry. So again, what I was saying before I swapped my batteries was that he's not swaying conservatives. Conservatives are up for grabs. No, sorry, I went through that one. Okay. What I was saying was that the people that he's swaying are authoritarian types that want a strong leader to save them from evil. Okay, so that's who's actually voting for Trump. It's not conservatives in the textbook sense. It's authoritarians that want someone to save them from evil, which is precisely Bush voters. That's who's voting for Trump, is Bush voters. And he fucked himself. He fucked up himself. Okay, and he went after Bush's legacy. He shouldn't be doing that right now. That's his base. Okay, that's the people that he wants to vote for him. Nobody else is going to vote for him. And what these people want is to avoid the typical error. Let's say they want Bismarck, or maybe even Stephen Harper. A lot of the same memes, a lot of the same mindset. I have some experience with this, and it's annoying as hell. The ads that they push down, strong leadership to control the economy. Like, they made it sound like we were living in Soviet Russia, right? Like that. Those were the ads in Canada. The conservative prime minister would provide strong leadership so he can control the economy. I just do not. And it was really hard to even come up with a reaction to it because it was so incoherent. And you weren't debating with people. There was no debate. It was just, this guy's the leader. And that was what they deduced that people wanted. Now, they couldn't get more than 40% of the vote, even when they suppressed turnout to record levels, and they did a couple of times. Like, I think it was 39% was his maximum when he had turnout suppressed, right? It worked out to something like 23%, right? It was enough to win the election, but it was a very small percentage of people, okay? But you just couldn't, there was no debating, because there was no debate to be had. There weren't issues, right? They managed to reduce politics. They took all of the issues out of the political spectrum. And so there were no debates because there were no issues. It was a really surreal period, okay? But I do have that experience. Now let me ask you this question. And this is the question that I would ask you coming out of that experience in Canada. Has what we've seen over the last year or so suggested that Donald Trump is actually a leader? If you look at what's happened over the last year, do you see a leader? I don't think it has. I think he's been a follower. He's been a follower of the most blatant sort. He's just bleeding the Republican line on point after point. He changed his position on abortion to win votes. And nobody believes that he believes what he said. So, don't. I went over this. The only takeaway that you can take from that is that he'll say whatever he thinks will win votes. He changed his position on healthcare. He was in favor of single-payer healthcare for years. And his new healthcare plan was something he scrawled out on a napkin. He's changed position after position after position after position based on what he thinks will win him votes. Even Stephen Harper could not get away with that. He had to stay strong on his word and argue that he never changed it. Okay? Flip-flopping around all over the place like that, that's not strong leadership. That's just being a follower. It's following the herd. It's doing whatever everybody else says, right? Now it's true that this entire debate, it might seem facile and it might seem childish. Okay? I don't want to fall into this narrative that voters are stupid either. I don't. But this particular type of voter is truly not so bright. And I think everything that I've said demonstrates that without the need for any further argument. And so this is how you get into their head. Donald Trump is not a leader. Repeat. Donald Trump is not a leader. And repeat. Donald Trump is not a leader. 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 And keep doing that over and over and over again. Put it in the subway systems. Okay? Have it in planes flying by. Every billboard that you can see. Drill it into people's heads. That's how you beat them. And you know what? It's not a lie. It's not... you have to approach it on the terms of propaganda, but it isn't propaganda. It's just the truth, because he isn't. Okay? The reality is that on party orders, he has taken foolish positions that he does not believe in. The actual reality is that he does what he's told. He's not a loose cannon. He's not a free spirit. He's just another tool in the establishment. Okay? He just does what he's told. He's not a leader. So you have to ask yourself the question, why should you believe he'll pull out of any trade deals? Why should you believe that he'll pull out of NATO? Why should you believe anything else he says? because what he says is not what he'll do. What he says is just made up on the spur of the moment in order to convince you to mark an X beside his name. What he'll actually do if he wins is precisely what he's told, because he's a follower. He's not a leader. And if you can convince people of that truth, you will win the election. Otherwise, you're going to have to deal with the fact that Hillary Clinton is a very poor general election candidate. And that her best bet of beating him is to swing conservatives.